I still remember that spring evening when Sara and I climbed into her beat-up Jeep after work. I thought our relationship had long since settled into that calm, sure place. I'd pick her up at the office, we'd decide together what to cook for dinner, and argue good-naturedly over whose playlist was cooler, her hip-hop or my indie. It was every bit like life for a typical American couple in the suburbs. A cozy two-bedroom house, our dog Baxter, and dreams of a road trip through the Rockies. I was behind the wheel. She was scrolling through Instagram next to me, laughing at memes or sending me videos of back-flipping cats. Mr. Brightside crackled over the radio, and I caught myself singing along, "Come on, come out, come down." Little did I know those words would echo like a lead weight in my chest just a few months later. We pulled up at her place, and Sara gave me a soft kiss before hopping out. I noticed her linger by the passenger door, peeking in as if she didn't want me to see the clutter inside. I shrugged it off, figured she'd been at her desk all day, but already something in me twitched. The next day I had to stay late at the office. An urgent pitch for a Seattle client was due at dawn. I called Sara to say I'd be home late, and she sounded calm. "That's fine. I'll wait up." When I finally walked in around midnight, lights on in the kitchen, there was a pot of lentil soup still simmering on the stove. She smiled when I came in, but her eyes looked tired. I handed her a bowl of soup, and we collapsed on the couch to watch a movie. Half an hour in, she started to twitch, laughing one second, shutting down the next, like she was afraid someone might overhear her thoughts. I asked what was wrong. She waved me off. "Just tired," she said. I bought it. She'd been under brutal deadlines all week. A week later, I noticed her phone face down more often, and at night she'd wake up clutching it, whispering to someone unseen. I didn't jump to worst-case scenarios. I assumed it was girl talk, or maybe she was planning a surprise. After all, small surprises had always been our thing. Breakfast in bed, neon fairy lights on our anniversary, little love notes tucked into napkins. Then one day, while she was in the shower, I saw a chat window open on her laptop. "I miss our late-night drives. Can't wait to see you again. A for Alex, some guy from her college volleyball team who used to tease me about my low voice." I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just an old friend. But late-night drives? That was our private ritual, cruising dark streets with no destination. How could he even know about that? That night, I crept over to her laptop and flipped it on. Over the past 2 weeks, their messages had grown. Soft confessions, hints about her weird weekend trips to her parents, and lines like, "I'm way too happy around you not to fight for it." My heart slammed in my chest. This girl I'd shared every sunrise with was pouring out her feelings to someone else. I fought the urge to dive deeper. I tried to convince myself it was just a silly flirtation. But why did I feel so hollow, and why couldn't I shake those messages from my mind? I knew this was more than harmless banter. Whatever I uncovered next would change everything. I barely slept that night. My head swam with every look Sara had given me, every sweet smile that now felt like an act. At dawn, I decided not to confront her on the spot. I wanted the full story first. While she slept, I quietly copied every single message to a flash drive and shut her laptop. I knew in my gut I'd never look at her the same way again. When Sara finally woke up, I acted normal. We had breakfast on the porch under the gentle spring sun, laughing at Baxter's failed attempt to snatch my pancake. Her eyes looked clear and effortless, her voice soft. I poured orange juice and casually said, "Hey, I'm thinking of heading up to the mountains with some buddies this weekend." "Sure," she said. "Take Baxter. He loves fresh air." My chest tightened. Right now I could explode in tears or rage, but I nodded and we moved on. Monday came too fast. At lunch, I slipped into the park across the street and pulled up their messages again. Alex was asking to meet tomorrow by the bookstore, saying he wanted to hear more about my feelings for you. His feelings for her. How could they both be so brazen? How did she look me in the eye every morning knowing she wasn't mine alone? That evening, I took myself to the reading corner. It was nearly empty, just a couple of students reading Camus, a few shelves of mysteries. I ran to the table by the window and froze. There they were. Sara, head resting on one hand, and Alex showing her something on his phone. I wanted to storm in, tear them apart, scream that none of it was real, that I could fix everything if she'd just come back. but I stayed silent, letting them have that moment. Sara saw me and went pale. Alex jumped up, fists clenched. "It's not what you think?" he stammered. I stepped closer, eyes on the lit chat on his phone. She slipped past me to a shelf of science pop books and whispered, "It wasn't like that. I didn't know how to tell you." I raised my voice. "Tell me what? That you've been stringing me along while you sneak off with someone else on your midnight drives?" She recoiled, silent. Alex averted his eyes, his shoulders tense. I asked, "Did you love him?" She turned away, took a breath, and said, "I don't know." "Don't know?" After all those I love yous, she didn't know. I asked how it started. She said Alex showed up one night with flowers and coffee to prep her for an interview. They clicked. She couldn't resist being noticed, but she insisted it was just an experiment. An experiment, like we were lab rats. I shook. "Experiments happen in a lab, not someone's heart," I said. My voice trembled, but I stayed calm. "You thought I wouldn't find out?" She looked down, matter of fact. "I just wanted to see what I felt. I'm not a test subject," I wanted to scream. "I'm a person you promised to love." We walked out under street lamps that whispered judgment. I offered to drive her home. She said, "I want to be alone." She left, engine roaring into the night, leaving me under cold light, every step echoing betrayal. I stood there thinking, I'm not the guy who built our happiness with evening drives and home-cooked meals anymore. I'm the guy who's lost his map and is searching for scraps of trust in the dark. I reached my front door and shut off the porch light. Inside, the house felt hollow. The couch where we once curled up, the kitchen where we argued over coffee mugs, they all seemed like stage props stripped of meaning. I sank to the floor, back against the cold baseboard, and let memories tumble. Our first Valentine's Day, that tiny handmade box she gave me, our late-night services at that little Baptist church, singing Amazing Grace hand in hand. Back then I wondered why she picked me for something so sacred, but nothing felt strange. Love felt boundless. I slept until dusk. When I woke, rage had burned itself out, leaving exhaustion and a heavy question. What now? I called my buddy Michael, always ready to listen, and he suggested we meet at our favorite dive, Harper's Garage. The bar's yellowing walls were plastered with vintage posters, and Michael wordlessly slid a beer my way. "Tell me everything," he said. I laid it all out. Michael nodded at each she. Then he grinned. "Man, you've officially earned a night of debauchery." I sipped my beer and shook my head. Celebration wasn't what I needed. I needed something whole. On closing time, Michael asked if I was going to church. He remembered I once found peace in the little parish at the corner. I mumbled an excuse, but he pressed, "Just sit in a pew. It might help." The next morning I found myself in St. John's, the bells toll closer to my heart than I expected. I sat in the first pew, half the seats empty. The pastor spoke of forgiveness and responsibility. Forgiveness doesn't excuse wrongdoing, but it clears a path to a new beginning. I wondered if I could forgive Sara, or if I'd rather hold on to bitterness as proof of my pain. After the service, I stepped onto the porch, pink-tinged sky overhead, and realized forgiveness wasn't about her. It was about letting me breathe again. I couldn't force her back, but I could choose how to live without the illusions that once bound us. I drove home, put on a 21 Pilots song she hated, and let its raw edge cut through me. Tomorrow I'd call Sara, ask for a real talk, not to extract tears or confessions, but to close this chapter, maybe for good. Inside, the darkness felt less suffocating. I was no longer the boy whose heart was a petri dish of passion and guilt. I was a man who could choose. Cling to pain or step toward the light. And that step would be mine. I woke the next morning feeling oddly reborn. The room's light felt crisper, the air clearer. I grabbed my phone. Overnight, I jotted down phrases I needed to say. I need to know exactly how you feel about me now. If this is over, just say it. I'm not asking for mercy, just honesty. Every word had to land just right. Too sharp and I'd lose her forever. Too soft and I'd end up empty-handed again. My fingers trembled dialing her number. "Hey, Sara, I need to talk." "Tonight, 6 o'clock at the reading corner." Her voice was a whisper. "Okay, I'll be there." 6 felt like a lifetime, but I powered through 2 cups of black coffee, threw on my faded denim jacket, and stepped into the breeze, scented with blooming lilacs. The cafe's lavender candles and dim light were just as I remembered. She sat at that same window table, turned slightly away. When I sat, she met my gaze. Fear, guilt, hesitation flickered in her eyes. I asked for tea and braced myself. The silence stretched until it felt like hours. Finally, I asked the hardest question. "Are you here to tell me the truth?" Her voice cracked. "I thought you wouldn't want to see me." I shook my head. "I want to hear you, but I need a setting that feels real, not like a performance." She inhaled deeply and began. "After that night with Alex, it spiraled. One meeting led to another. Every forbidden spark grew hotter. She tried to summon my face in her mind, but all she felt was guilt and confusion. I pressed, 'What was between you two?' She said they never went further than talking about some imagined future. But those talks pulled her away from me more than miles ever could. I wanted to leap up and shout, 'You destroyed my home, you betrayed my heart.' Instead, I clenched my fists on the table and said softly, 'I need time to digest this. I don't know if I can ever go back to who I was before today.' She shut her eyes as if bracing for a blow. I kept going. 'I'm not asking you to stay if your heart's not here. But tell me, do you want to try to rebuild what we had?' Tears glimmered in her eyes as she whispered, 'Yes.' That tiny yes didn't erase the pain, but it offered a sliver of hope. I said we had to start over completely, with no more half-truths or secret chats. She nodded, and we agreed that words alone wouldn't save us. We'd need help. We scheduled couples counseling to uncover our mistakes, my doubts, her insecurities, the gaps that let someone else slip in. Walking out, the spring air felt lighter than it had in months. We held hands, not as lifelines but as steady warmth. Sara asked, "Are you still angry?" I placed my palm over hers and said, "I'm angry at the hurt, but anger without purpose is like water in a broken well. I'd rather channel it into rebuilding." She smiled through her tears. "Thank you for giving us a chance." I knew the road ahead wouldn't be smooth. That night, I left the porch light on and sat with my notebook, sketching a recovery plan, daily check-ins, technology boundaries, fear talks, shared playlists. Laying it out in writing felt like reclaiming control. I realized our path wasn't about battling the past, but about forging a future where trust wasn't just a word, but a foundation rebuilt stone by stone. In the weeks that followed, life turned into a deliberate march toward each other. On our first counseling session, we laid bare every fear, my nighttime jitters at any knock on the door, her panic at phone notifications. The therapist gave us honesty exercises. Each night for a week, we had to speak 3 things we'd been too scared to say. Some were simple. "I worry that my work stories bore you." But without them, our trust bridge would never set. On night 8, Sara confessed she missed the thrill of new attention and felt unseen when I drifted into my phone. I realized it wasn't enough to stay faithful. We had to recapture natural openness. I created morning rituals in my notebook. 5 minutes of phone-free coffee chat, sharing something that brought us joy. First morning, we discussed a novel's protagonist we both loved. The next, we dissected the lyrics of a song that reminded us how it felt at the start. Those small islands of presence became beacons in our healing sea. We also committed to a weekly world date, anything out of the house together. One Saturday, we wandered an old industrial waterfront, marveling at cranes and rail lines, reminding ourselves to shift focus from inner turmoil to the broader view. Another time, we tried a pottery class, feeling clay shape under our hands, a metaphor for the flexibility and care our relationship needed. Sara still flinched at her chat tone, so I suggested we update all notification sounds to a picture of us with Baxter. We laughed when each ping looked like a tiny family postcard, a reminder who deserved our attention. 3 weeks in, I saw something new in her eyes. Not guilt, but determination to be the woman I once trusted without question. That weekend, I did something I'd longed to do. At a friend's dinner party, I took Sara's hand and in front of everyone said, "I confronted my fears face first, and I'm ready to keep walking this road together." The room fell silent, then erupted in applause. In their eyes, I saw joy for us both. Days later, we finally made that trip to the Rockies, our dream destination tucked away until our relationship stabilized. On that misty mountain road, Sara watched the sunrise, and I realized no cloud in her skies should ever overshadow her horizon again. We sat in the Jeep, breathing crisp air, and I pictured us marking many more anniversaries at this very spot. Nothing's fully healed. I know wounds need daily tending. But now, When I hug Sara in the morning and look her in the eyes, I'm not haunted by betrayal, but buoyed by progress. I've learned that love isn't an explosion, it's a slow-burning hearth that withstands rain when we keep feeding it sparks of honesty and care. Shortly after our mountain trip, our mailbox held a card from our new neighbors, Jessica and David. "Come meet the crew for dinner." I glanced at Sara, saw excitement in her eyes. She wanted to be part of something fresh. I agreed, though I still braced against my own doubts. Their living room filled with neighbors and kids, and over candles and wine, the chatter drifted from weather to films. Sara's laughter came easier. Her posture relaxed. When David asked to snap a photo for a hallway collage, I cracked. "Be careful with memories. They're easy to doctor." The joke landed awkwardly, but no one froze. I saw a flicker of worry in Sara's gaze, residual fear that the past might erupt unexpectedly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I rose, found her old mountain tea in the closet, and thought about how every object here could trigger ghosts. I turned off lights, sat at my desk, and reverted our SMS tone back to the song she loved, after months of mute notifications to stave off panic. I lay down feeling determined. Time to face those ghosts, not hide from them. In the morning, her phone burst into her favorite riff. She looked stunned, then free, as if I hadn't just caught her anxiety, but embraced it. We shared a quiet nod. I said, "Let's stop running. We need moments when we hear that song and remember not just the past, but how far we've come." She whispered, "Thank you for that reminder." The very next day, my colleague James asked me to pitch to investors that afternoon. I knew Sara was on a late shift, but I also knew my career mattered, that I couldn't sacrifice my ambitions just to keep a fragile peace. I told her I wouldn't cancel. She seemed surprised. "I thought you'd back out." I answered, "No, but I want you in the audience." On presentation day, we took a taxi downtown. She straightened my tie backstage, the same Sara who once surprised me with flowers, but now she stood proud, not fearful. My speech was full of numbers and roadmaps, but inside I felt her support like bedrock. Afterward, we stepped into the evening air. She hugged me and said, "You were amazing." I smiled. "Your look in the audience was my best reward." She asked softly, "So you're not afraid anymore?" I looked at the gathering clouds. Fear's part of the journey. We just turn it into fuel, not cages. Each morning now, I wake before my alarm, reach for coffee, and slip my hand into hers to call her downstairs. Our kitchen feels free of ghosts. No cold stares, no restless pacing, just two people greeting a new day together. Yet even now, life tests us. A month after the mountains, Sara's brother Jason flew in. He's always been blunt, poking fun at our sentimental streak. That first dinner, he eyed us coolly and asked, "So how's it going?" Sara said quietly, "We're working at it." He smirked. "Working? Does trust rebuild overnight?" His tone was thorny. I forced calm, then excused myself to the window. Inside, I felt old hurts stirring. The next day, we ran errands. Sara to lab results, me to prep another pitch. My mind drifted to Jason's doubts. She touched my arm. "You're worried about him?" I admitted. "He doesn't believe in us." "It hurts," she offered. "Let's call him tonight. Invite him for a lake walk. No drama, just talk." I agreed. That evening I called. Jason's voice was clipped. "What's up?" I said, "I want to hang out. We miss you." After a pause, he said, "Fine, see you at 7. We walked to the lakeside as dusk fell, gentle breeze stirring cherry blossoms. Jason studied us, then quietly said, "You look different." We sat by the water, silence stretching until he asked, "How did you get to this slow recovery?" I shared our counseling, the morning rituals, setting small daily goals. Sara told him how crucial it was that I never demanded instant forgiveness, but gave her the space to be honest. He picked up a pebble, rolled it between his fingers, and said, "I always thought cheating burned the bridge forever. You two proved me wrong." His words warmed me more than I expected. At home that night, I saw Sara breathe easier, her shoulders unburdened. We only said goodnight and drifted off, but I realized, even if the world outside doubts us, the only faith that matters is ours. The next morning over coffee, Sara's phone buzzed with a message from Alex. My chest froze, but she gave a sad smile and deleted it on the spot. I watched her and felt certainty. Real proof of trust isn't archiving the past, it's letting it finally die. We agreed no more contact with Alex. That was my last frontier, relinquishing that flirtation completely. She squeezed my hand, and in her eyes I saw not fear, but solidarity. Now I head off to work, plotting my next presentations, not out of fear for what's coming, but out of pride in what I'm building. Every day with Sara remains a test, but we face those tests together. And if anyone asks if our story ended, I'll say, no, it's just the beginning.